It's been labeled the decade of 2020.
The only absolute from preventing an imported case is to shut Jamaica off from the rest of the world.
A nation under lockdown.
We out there, we not going, see there. Life me, I make sure go.
The market me mess that sent social media sizzling.
Did you cheat on your wife with any of the prince?
A political landslide from Kingston.
Tonight, the victor is the people of Jamaica.
To Washington.
This is the time to heal in America.
And the saga of the 8th senator. 2020 turned out to be a most eventful year in Jamaica, and Gleaner online readers were racking up the numbers on the stories that mattered. Here now are your top 12 stories for the year 2020. Hello, I'm Damian Mitchell, and thank you for joining us for 2020, the year in review. With me today, broadcaster and university lecturer Faye Ellington, public commentator Javion Nelson, and former guild president at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Christina Williams. Ladies, gentlemen, in one word, how do you sum up 2020? Javion?
Tough.
Different.
Opportunities.
Well, here now is your countdown of the top 12 stories for 2020, based on your readership of the Gleaner online. It was the 12th most read story for 2020. Relative confesses to plotting Trelawney woman's murder. In a bizarre development on July 15, police investigators arrested a close relative of 36-year-old Trelawney woman Tamara Geddes in connection with her murder. The relative confessed that she plotted the murder. She, her mother, and 2 other persons were later charged with murder. Faye Ellington, how did you take this story?
The first thing that came to my mind was, what are the clubs? And then I said, it's shocking what people will do to even their own relatives.
This really shows just how many challenges we have in the country and the constant feud that people have with each other, and that there's so much need for us to do more to engender greater conflict resolution among our families and communities and with friends.
Jamaica confirms 6 new coronavirus cases. The local spread begins. It was the 11th most read story for 2020 based on your readership of the Gleaner online. The story carried on March 13 read, the health ministry said 2 of the new cases relate to people who had close contact with the first patient.
I recall being in an emergency meeting at the university and being told that students would have to go home. There'd be no more physical classes. And so I think for me in that moment, it segued into a new way of learning, which we now have online learning. And I don't think we'll ever be able to go back to complete face-to-face with these given circumstances.
Tufton seeks advice as name goes viral. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton on July 15 reserved comment after his name got entangled in a series of social media posts that have gone viral. The social media posts were circulated widely on WhatsApp and Instagram and related to deeply personal matters. They culminated with this question by reporter Zara Burton at a virtual press conference.
Did you cheat on your wife with any of the prince?
Javion, your pick.
As we like to say, it had a buzz. I think it was very salacious. And so for a number of people, it had them talking for many, many days. And it spoke to some issues that we constantly have in the country around conflict of interest and how those must be declared, etc. And whether or not there was one in this case in actuality.
No, Minister.
Hold on, no, let me answer.
Minister.
Let me respond. First of all, that's none of your business. And I would prefer you stick to questions around the operations of the ministry. And just as I leave you to your private life, I'd like you to allow me mine. Thank you very much.
There's something that will never leave me. And that was the expression on the permanent secretary's face when the question was asked. And the mouthing of, oh my God.
But I think the big part of this really is just about how do we manage our relations and how do we ensure fairness and equity right across the board.
There's a thing that says no publicity is bad publicity. We'll find out.
The 9th most read story for 2020, It Kills Me. Boyfriend of late Jodian Fearon in anguish. It was raw agony for immigration officer Kenton Sr., the boyfriend of first-time mom Jodian Fearon, who died under controversial circumstances in April.
I can't believe this year Jamaica has gone to You understand? I grew up watching my grandmother saving people's lives. You understand? In the country where my grandmother delivering children out of their mothers. Right? And now to see something like this happening to my own, where she was pushed away from a hospital. Right? Which cost her her life. And then she was rejected by 2 other medical facilities in Jamaica. This is just said, how do you explain something like this?
It was a painful story for so many people, Christina Williams, you recall.
Yes, very painful story. And I saw that a lot of us, bonded together through social media and trying to provide support. A lot of persons were calling on the government to do something about it. Unfortunately, that story became a 9-day wonder. And I would love to still see some of the promises that were made to us in terms of renovations and improvements in the health sector.
Faye Ellington?
Seems that there's much more to that story than we know, that we now know. And I'm not certain when we'll get to the bottom of it.
Then, by November, custody battle for Jodian Fearon's baby. A legal fight for Jodian Fearon's 6-month-old daughter, Peyton Grace, is threatening to inflict fresh wounds in the relationship between loved ones of the deceased first-time mom. Kenton Sr., the father of Peyton Grace, is now wrestling with Fearon's family for custody of the infant, with the matter to be settled in court.
I can only imagine how the father might feel, but I also empathize with the, Peyton's grandmother and rest of her family. But I agree with Faye that we perhaps will never ever know some of the details of the story.
COVID-19 health emergency. Coronavirus could lock down Jamaica for the next 5 months. That was in March. The health minister reported that the land of reggae music festivals, outdoor life and mass gatherings could become a country under COVID-19 medical emergency for the next 3 to 5 months, effectively putting a halt to a plethora of activities. Faye Ellington, did it happen?
It happened, and I believe it had to happen. As a matter of fact, some people wanted it to be even more severe and to last longer. I'm not certain, though, to how effective it was or continues to be, because as we are here going into the new year, people are just doing their thing. They're having parties. They're hanging out at bars. They're hanging out on the corner. So, yeah, it happened.
At that time, a lot of my friends, they were very concerned because we were looking forward to Carnival. I know Javian here was looking forward to Carnival as well. And that never happened. And we actually had to make a decision as a guild at the time that we had to put aside millions of dollars that we would have, gotten through sponsorship to host Carnival. So that was something that we never liked. But I think it was important decision to make, in that we had to cut in terms of the different outdoor activities that we had. But as Auntie Faye said, because we're now facing COVID fatigue and we're cutting corners, I'm not sure if the effect was as we would have wanted it to be.
Perhaps the sector that is most affected by COVID-19, whether in Jamaica or in America or South Africa, is the performing arts and the entertainment. The blow has been severe, and it continues to be so, and we don't understand, unless you are part of it, you'll never understand the numbers of people who are hurting.
Dancehall artist Ragn King shot. It was the 6th most read story for Gleaner online readers. On June 28, the Gleaner reported that dancehall artist Ragn King was shot in Stewie, Westmoreland after leaving a funeral. A woman in his company was also shot and succumbed to her injuries. A third person was also injured.
I love dancehall, and Ragn King is one of those big dancehall artists. It was very shocking, and a number of people were expressing sadness, and on some of those social media gossip pages, there was quite outpouring, and lots of well wishes for him to get better soon, as well as well wishes for the departed partner of his.
In April, COVID-19 killer. Doctors developed salt filters for masks to fight coronavirus. The process of making the filters is simple, cheap, and the materials can be easily obtained, Dr. Alfred Dawes told the Gleaner.
Even toilet paper or napkins, paper towels, anything of the sort can be used as long as you use multiple layers. And to do that, it's simple. You create a salt solution and you soak the filter in it and let it dry overnight. And then the salt itself will act to kill the virus when it comes in contact with it, when the droplets fall on it.
Faye Ellington, it was a big story in the Sun, the Gleaner, got a lot of hits, and I'm sure it also piqued your interest.
It did, particularly too, because one of the doctors involved, the one who was quoted extensively, I know very, very well for his boldness and innovation. but I'm not too certain what has happened. The salt filter out.
The fourth most read story for 2020, COVID-19. Jamaica declared disaster area. Restriction now on travel from United Kingdom. This was March 13. Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared all of Jamaica a disaster area amid the coronavirus. At the same time, he announced a travel ban on the United Kingdom, the source country for Jamaica's first imported case.
What we're doing now are taking all the measures within the next 14 days. We are in that 14-day period of containment.
Jodian, a full circle, do we say?
Absolutely, because here we are now banning flights to and from the United Kingdom again. I think at that time it was very, very frightening. I remember Attorney General Marlene Malahoo Ford giving the instructions about the law and what will happen and the kind of powers that the government would have, you know, for example, being able to demolish a place if they believe that it was harboring and would cause challenges. But thankfully, we haven't had anything like that. But certainly, I think we've been able to proceed quite fairly well.
Then, stuck in the United States after what was supposed to be a weekend visit, Jamaican Juliette Brooks cried openly Wednesday night in an interview with the Gleaner, uncertain when the government will allow her to return home.
We saw that in terms of students, but I think it was a necessary sacrifice. Probably it's a controversial, it was a necessary sacrifice because of what was happening, that we had to take a stance to say that we had to limit how we were having traveling coming and going.
6 parishes, 300 people, contact with coronavirus patients spiral as Jamaica declared disaster area. This was a second edition print for the Gleaner. At the time, people's reaction to COVID was different, but have things changed?
Lord, holy for cases, and I'm very concerned we're going to blow up come January because of how we are conducting ourselves. I don't know if you all have been noticing, but many people are not wearing masks. The physical distancing is not happening. Check the taxis and you look into them, everybody crunch up in there. So, you know, I don't know. And the younger people very often are going out and having a grand time, then they're perhaps coming home to those persons who are older or have underlying conditions. I'm very concerned about what the numbers will look like in January, February, because it's definitely going to be a big increase.
Full list COVID-19 assistance programs and how to apply. It was the second most read story for 2020. This was in April. The Minister of Finance said that all was set to begin accepting applications for Jamaica's $10 billion COVID-19 care program.
It was very, very shocking, you know, that the government really put so much thought into the program. I think it was very important that people in the informal sector were thought of, for example, taxi drivers, hairdressers, and barbers and stuff. You know, certainly not as much as many of us would like, but I think it really helped. And a lot of people right across the country were really, really grateful.
Thought was put into it, as Jodian says, lots of thought, and your story, I wanted to say, the Gleaner story is very well done and outlined 8 subsections that people could look at and read to see if they were a taxi operator or a driver or whatever it is, how they would benefit. But something wasn't properly worked out. So there are people who still didn't have their money. And of course, there was this rush on certain entities. That was part of the arrangement for them to get the money. And there were people who got the money who should not have got the money.
The top story for 2020. Contract killer makes tearful confession to murder of Portland businessman's wife. It was the story of a contract killer detailing how he lured Tonya McDonald, the wife of popular Portland businessman Everton Beachy Stout McDonald, to a deserted roadway in the parish and watched as the man he subcontracted stabbed her repeatedly.
It speaks to me personally because I'm actually from Portland. And when the first wife was killed in a similarly gruesome way, it was a big deal. I was a student at the time at Titchfield and we heard about it, and everybody pointed fingers, but there was no resolution to the case. To date, we still don't know who did it. And now to hear about his second wife and what has happened, and then the confession by the person that he paid. It's good to see justice being brought forward as a young woman and also as a Portlander, but it also speaks to more that needs to be done in terms of protection of our women, both through policies and in the actual programs that we have as well.
Christina, I hear you, but government can't do anything about that kind of domestic gruesomeness that evil that is in somebody's heart. I still am sitting around asking myself, because this is not just the only story. There are many stories when you hear them and say, what is it that is in somebody's heart that allows them to do something like that? So the tears and the confession, fine. But
I think it goes back to the conflict resolution that Jodian talked about earlier. A lot of us don't know how to deal with conflicts, which is one thing. But then I think government still has a part to play, because if you don't feel that there will be adequate investigations and that you may actually be brought to justice, you may actually do it twice. So I think there has to be sanctions in place that make people feel scared that they can't do these things and get away with it.
I appreciate fully what you're saying. I thought it was at the other end you're looking at it, right. But at this end, you're perfectly right. But we have to find a way to get men to understand, yes. Not only men, but men to understand that, and sometimes older men, because they get involved with younger women and they lure them with all kinds of things, and then for whatever reason. But this creature, that's what I call him, this creature clearly is a sick person.
Well, that's all the time we have for 2020, the year in review. Thanks to broadcaster and university lecturer Faye Ellington, public commentator Javion Nelson, and former Guild president at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Christina Williams. And of course, thanks to you for your kind and continued support in 2020. We look forward to 2021. I'm Damian Mitchell, and before we go, a flashback to the story that cracked 1 million views on our YouTube channel in 2020. The inspiring chronicle of 38-year-old Kevin Robinson, a gunshot victim doing little things to make a big impact in his Clarendon community. Thanks for watching.
I got shot from 1998 when I was in Kingston. Spent some time with my brothers up there. Gunman shoot me. Come shoot up another community. And not my community me get shot from, you know. It's another community where I went to look for a friend.
He's a very nice person. Nice. And he love to counsel people a lot. Really? Yeah.
It's hard sometimes, you know, to be honest, because sometimes, even when it happens to me, sometimes it won't break me away, but I fight against it sometimes. I always say, boy, God man destroy my life before me even get a chance to dream what me would have liked to become. If you lose your mobility to walk at such a tender age, it really affects. Enough people say, Kevin, I don't know what you do it, you know, because at 22 years now you get shot and you still happy, see you and laugh. And but I always tell people, say, when you can accept reality in life, you will live. But when you live in denial, you will have problems.